Welcome back. So in preparation for the first flight of the Raptor, I had Bill from Azalea Aviation take me up in a Mooney that he's looking after right now. So here we are departing out of Adel Airport, which is about 20 miles north of Valdosta. So just departing on 23, and the plan was to fly down to Valdosta and then sort of do a couple of approaches around the airport there and fly the pattern, kind of what it would be like on the first flight of the Raptor. So the wind was from the north, so we couldn't really just land and then do a practice takeoff to the south. So the goal was going to be to just basically do a low approach on 17 and sort of slow down to 90 knots and then basically pretend, climb out 90 knots, 500 to 800 feet a minute and fly right traffic pattern in order to just sort of get a visual and get some video obviously of how that was all going to look for the first flight and see what the timing was going to be and where the aircraft would be at any particular time. So here we are now just doing that first low approach. We did two. So climbing out here from about the 3,000 foot mark of the runway, trying to sort of hold 90 knots, and I think we were doing about 800 feet a minute on this one. So the goal is going to be just to fly straight ahead, as you can see here. And then if you see the camera there in the bottom right corner, that's the one just sort of looking down there, kind of the view that I would have in the aircraft, sitting in the right hand seat. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of grass at the end of the runway, and then there's a couple of fields there that curve off to the right. So there's pretty much options all the way at this point of being able to put it down, without being involved with trees or buildings. And coming around a bit further, you come upon the highway. So this is 3 lanes in either direction. There's no power lines for this upcoming stretch. There's a couple of exit signs that are spaced quite far apart, and I think would be easy enough to miss those. And so this is the point that I'd be after a minute of flying at the speeds that we've done here, and that's when I'd probably have to pull the power off if I didn't have any cooling working whatsoever, sort of similar to the ground runs that you'll see in a little while. And so if I had to pull the power back here because things were getting too warm, even if I have to pull it back to 50%, within about 18 seconds, I have the sight picture that you're just about to see here, where you're looking down at runway 4 there with a fairly easy lineup to go land on runway 4. Now it's 5,500 feet, so it wouldn't really be a problem of putting it down there if you're in this position here. So there's pretty much always an option. You've got grass, you've got the highway, and then you've got runway 4. And if everything goes as planned and I'm here, then it would just be a case of flying a normal pattern and probably go around twice if there's no cooling issues or no other problems, and just make a normal landing on runway 17. So all in all, I don't think I could ask for much of a better setup for options, for the first flight. So this is just a second go around at that same pattern, doing the same thing. This time Bill had it there at 100 knots, and I asked him just to climb out at 500 feet a minute, just to see how that played out. So obviously I'd be accelerating at this point down the runway, and then just after the tower there on the left, which would be about the 3,000 foot mark, I'd start to climb out here, and this would be pretty much the speed I'd be climbing out at, sort of 98, 100 knots, and probably end up getting to about 110 knots, not going too steep in order to allow plenty of cooling air to come in through the engine there. And then again, as before, you can see there's plenty of room there to put down on the grass if there's an initial problem, and just again curving around, following those other fields there. If you had to put it down there, there's still some room as well. There's not very many good options just straight ahead at this point, but you do have the field there, and if you're at this point here, I think you could quite comfortably make the turn and get it back down on the highway, just gliding if you had to. But I know for a fact after all the testing I've done, that you're going to see coming up here, that I can get absolutely to this point here with full power with it even no cooling. So this is the 1 minute mark from rotation right here again, and you see almost 1,000 feet here at 100 knots. So here's where I'd have to pull the power back if I had no cooling whatsoever, like the way I'm doing when I'm on the ramp. I'd have to pull the power back here to about 50%, and from there I'd have about 30 seconds of power at 50% before things would be getting still too hot. So a few seconds later here, or 20 seconds later, I've got that sight picture again and the lineup for runway 4. So yeah, that's basically the option. If for some reason I'm just not getting the cooling that I need and not able to keep the engine cool enough, you'd just be putting it down on runway 4. So overall, I'm pretty comfortable with the setup or at least the plan for the first flight. I don't think I could make it any better than that at this airport, and frankly I don't think there's too many other places where you have this sort of options for coming around and landing on a nice runway.
Alright, so I'm back out on the ramp doing another just a static test. This time I'm going to actually have the heater on and working as I do the test, and I'll be able to time everything just to see how long I've got at full power. So I'm going to take it to about 220 degrees on the oil temp, starting at 145 from when I go to full power, and we'll see how long I have. And then at 220 I'm going to bring it back to about 50%. So just warming up right now. It's about 110 on the oil temp right now. Alright, just about ready to go here. There's 145. Put the heater on. The fuel heater loop on. And here we go.
Okay, so as you can see there, because of the cooler temperatures, the prop was developing more thrust than previous times when I was testing the brakes, and I just wasn't even able to hold the aircraft still there with full pressure on the brakes and with the park brake on. So I had to basically just get things lined up there, shut it down, and go out and get some chocks to chock the wheels.
Clear prop.
Alright, let's try that again with some wheel chocks, because the brakes were not holding with this cooler temperatures. So yeah, I've got the heater on. Fuel heat loop is on. Brakes are on. Park brakes on. Audio is on. Everything else is on here that I need on. Alright, here we go. 157 already on the oil temp, so we're a little bit high already. Hopefully it holds on the chocks now.
Okay, so at this point, because I had topped up the coolant the other day, as you can see it's starting to come out the overflow there. Not very much because I pulled the power back there before it really got to 250, but still nonetheless some came out.
Yeah, just a little bit of coolant coming out the overflow because I got to 240, 245 on the coolant temp. That was a pretty long one.
Alright, so this basically shows me that with this power profile I can comfortably get to that position in the pattern there where I can make and land on runway 4 without any real problems. So when I actually go to do the real flight I'll be in a better position, because first of all this one where I started the power up, I was at 155 oil temp, and when I actually start the real one it's going to be 145. And then also too, did some comparisons the other day for how long it takes for the temperature to rise 10 degrees for both coolant and oil when sitting static here and also going down the runway. And pretty much across the board it takes 25% longer for the temperature to rise that 10 degrees when I'm out on the runway than it does sitting static here, and that's just when the airspeed is about 70 knots. So it'll actually be better at 90 or 100 knots. So that'll buy me a bunch of extra time. So if it takes 90 seconds, if I've got 90 seconds of full power on the ground here, then I'll have another 25% on top of that. The other thing I found too, if I pay attention to keeping the aircraft level when I've pulled it out and getting everything ready, I don't get that mismatch in the left and right tanks, so the fuel stays even on both sides, so that's another plus. And also I realised here if I turn the heater from 80 degrees in the cabin to 90 degrees it does a much better job of pulling heat out. So I've got a bunch of different options there, so everything's looking good. So that's the update. Thanks again for watching, and tune in again for the next one.